Hi, everyone, and welcome to week 6. It's hard to believe we are almost finished with our course. I want to apologize for all the trouble we had with TrackStar this past week. I know that was so frustrating. Some of you were able to get it to work, some of you were not, and we came up with some alternatives. But needless to say, I think this will be the last time we try to use TrackStar. I like the idea behind that activity, but I think that we will have to find a better way to do that. So I apologize if that was frustrating, but a good rule of technology is it doesn't always work, and sometimes we have to figure out an alternative. So some of us got a life lesson in that this week. So I also want to say I'm continually impressed with your lesson plans. Has everyone improved from week 1 to week 2? I hope giving you that exemplar helped. And the feedback, and then allowing people to redo things that they had missed or messed up on. Um, and one more thing about grades. I just realized today that Blogger is sending some of your responses to spam, which I did not realize even existed in Blogger. So if you look at your blog grade and you see that you have a 0 or a blank, please let me know if you do and for what week. If you know for a fact that you submitted something, and I'm going to go back through that spam folder. I've been doing that anyway, but I just want to make sure I didn't miss anybody. So just let me know. Okay, I think that's all for that. So let's move ahead to week 6. All right, so let's see. What are we reading this week? All right, so in your textbooks, you're looking at Chapter 10, Using the Web for Teaching and Learning, and Chapter 14, Emerging Technologies and Schools. And this is the last of the readings. There'll be no readings for next week. All right, then we have our discussion question this week. Okay, sorry, my computer's being a little slow. My 6-year-old is in the other room, so I had to shut the door, so I think that's affecting my signal. So this week, Chapter 10 discusses how technology can be, I need to go back and add B, used to communicate with parents, students, the community, and other entities. How do you plan to use technology to enhance communication in your classroom? Reference the book at least once. So there's stuff in this chapter about different things you can do and use, and there may even be something you know about that's not mentioned in the chapter. I don't know if the chapter mentions this, but if you haven't heard of Remind, you might want to check that out. It is a fabulous tool for communicating with students and parents. But so if you know something that's not in the chapter, you are welcome to talk about that. But please reference the book at least once. Here's your rubric. So you want to make sure, once again, that you fully address your main topic and that you respond to your peers. Fully address the main topic by Wednesday, respond by Friday. Okay? So that's our discussion question for this week. You have an assignment this week. We're going to create a podcast. If you don't know what a podcast is, if you click here, you can hear some examples. You just need to scroll to the bottom of the page as the directions tell you. Oh, it's not wanting to open up right there. So, you can just click on that little arrow. And you could also just Google, classroom podcast if you wanted to. But here's some examples, some resources. Okay, and some podcasts down here that teachers create, that kind of thing. So you might want to look at these. But essentially, a podcast is a recording of you talking about a subject. Maybe you're reading a short passage or story, but you're having the students do something with that. So a podcast could be a great use in a center, or if you were flipping your classroom and having the students do something at home. So a good podcast is going to have the students have something in mind that they need to be listening for or doing. For example, maybe you're teaching a lesson about rhyming words, and so you read the students a story before you begin. You might want to say, remember, this week we've been learning about rhyming words. I'm going to read you this short story or this picture book, and I want you to listen along and write down all the rhyming words you hear. All right, and then you would read it, and at the end you would remind them, because you want to make sure that you're not just reading a story and they don't have anything to be listening for, or just talking about a particular topic and there's nothing for them to be listening for. If you're talking about something maybe to do with science or social studies, you might have a couple of questions at the beginning that you're telling them to look for the answers for as you're reading or as you're talking in your podcast. So make sure there's something for them to do. All right, so let's look at the assignment. All right, so right here we have our podcast instructions. And that little panda's working hard. Okay, so you're going to create a very basic podcast, and it's going to be loaded and linked to your website. As you know, next week your final assignment for me is a website. And speaking of that, I'll go ahead and put the instructions up for that soon, so you guys can start thinking about it. But you're going to be creating it. You can create it. Really, I don't mind if you want to use Google's website or Google Sites or Weebly. I love Weebly, it's much easier, but whatever it is you want to use for that. But this will be linked to your website at the end, but you'll also be turning it in this week as well. So you're going to create a podcast, but you really want to have a script. I'm kind of talking off the cuff right now, and you can tell sometimes I'll get a little sidetracked, but when a podcast, you want to be purposeful and specific. So reading off of a script is usually a good idea. So you can do any topic for any grade level that you wish. You could read a poem and ask questions, give a description of a place or historical site, maybe ask some questions about that, describe how to carry out a mathematical function, have students maybe working along with you and have something to show for it. But you want to make sure that you're planning carefully and that you have a script. It should not be too long. Google Sites is one, and I'm not going to make you use Google Sites if you don't want to, but you don't want it to be too long because any of these hosting sites is not going to take any audio pieces too long. All right, we're going to be using Audacity. This is my suggestion for you. Audacity is great, and there are instructions underneath this in our module. Let me click back over. You can see help with using Audacity, and we'll click back into that in a second. Great thing, great podcasting software, great audio recording software. But if you're like me and you have a Mac, I'd use GarageBand because that's what I know how to use, and it's going to give you the same type of product. So you're welcome to do that as well. And if there's something on your Windows computer that you already have that you're familiar with, that's fine too. Or some other way that you want to record, but it needs to be an MP3 in the end. Okay? So it's going to theoretically be on your website and available for anyone who accesses your website to download, so make sure it's a good one. So once you've carefully planned your podcast, you're going to be ready to record it. I'm going to show you where all the information is about Audacity. And finally, like I said before, a good podcast lets the students know what they should be listening for and or doing during the recording and reminds them of that again at the end. There's a rubric you can download, but it's the same as here. This project is worth 30 points. You want to make sure that your podcast contains quality content related to a specific age level and subject or topic. If it's not obvious, then you might want to say, hi, this is Miss So-and-so from her kindergarten class, and we're going to be talking about the subject today, just so it's very clear. Make sure you begin with some instructions for the students for what they are listening for or what they should be doing. Then make sure you end up reminding them of whatever that was. It needs to be free of grammatical errors and also needs to be free of technical errors. All right, so that is the assignment. There are some examples there we looked at, so I'm going to click here on this Help with Audacity. We've got some tutorials here as a basic Audacity tutorial, how to edit files with Audacity, how to save the files as MP3s. Here's where you go and you download Audacity and put it on your computer. If you're for some reason using one of the computers ever now, Audacity is already on it, or it should be. And then, this is the big deal. You cannot send me an Audacity file. It has to be an MP3. So this last link is a converter. It converts the Audacity files into an MP3 file. So you make sure that you do that. Inevitably, somebody always sends me the Audacity file, and I'll just send it back to you and tell you to follow the directions. But you could save us both some time and go ahead and make sure it's in an MP3. Okay, we have our blog entry this week. Like I said, I'm going to make you do something a little different this week because I want to make sure I know who submitted the blog and I'm not just going through and reading it, because apparently Blogger thinks they know more than me and they want to put some of your responses in spam, and I don't like that. So you're going to go and you're going to answer this week's blog post. Chapter 14 in your textbook discusses the changing landscape of technology and its effect on education. Do you see technology changing the role of the teacher in the classroom? Hint, hint, there's a part in the chapter about that. If so, why do you see it changing the teacher's role, and how do you see it changing the teacher's role? If you don't see it changing the teacher's role, then why not? Reference your textbook at least once. Once you have completed the blog entry, come back here in the submission box. Yours looks different than mine, and just say I did it or whatever, just so it'll be some sort of a submission, and that way I'll know to go and check it. Your rubric is down here that you fully respond to the question, you reference the textbook at least once, and no grammar, spelling, usage, and or punctuation errors. Okay, so that's our blog post for this week. And then finally, your last lesson plan 4. Okay, for this lesson, you'll be asked to develop an activity or approach to using one of the World Wide Web 2 applications that we discussed. So, when I say discuss, obviously I mean what you've read in this chapter and in this week. So we talk about podcasts. You're going to read something. There's a little bit about blogs and wikis and other interactive applications. Other types of technology applications can also be included. You'll be asked to include a technology management strategy appropriate to the technology applications used and a special needs modification for a group of your choice. Here's your rubric. Down here you can see, okay, your Worldwide 2, you got your technology management approach, Worldwide 2, I can't say that, World Wide Web 2 application described, such applications may include blogs, wikis, podcasts, like we just talked about, and your special needs modifications. So make sure that you're looking at this rubric and make sure that you're looking at the Brunel template and you're using that and adding things as needed. Okay, that is it for week 6. If you have questions, concerns, problems, you can email me. I'll get back to you as soon as I can, and we'll work out the best solution that we can. I hope you guys have had a great weekend, and you're gearing up for another good week this week. My classes start back at the University of Georgia this week, where I am working on my PhD, so it's all getting geared up again, and I'm sure some of you already have kids that have gone back to school. Mine does not go back to school until Tuesday. I think we are the last county in Georgia, it feels like, going back to school, but I think we're all ready. So let me know if you need anything, and have a great week.